Hello and welcome to MarketSquare, your go-to show for deep insights into business and economic trends. I'm Olaitun Adebayo, and today we are diving into key developments across Nigeria. Stay with us. Welcome back to MarketSquare. According to the National Bureau of Statistics, headline inflation is to 20.12% in August 2025, down from 21.88% in July. It's also a sharp drop from 32.15% recorded in August 2024. On paper, that's a good news, but on the market and on the street, the story sounds different. The data shows month-on-month inflation slows to 0.74% in August compared to 1.99% in July. Food deflation, which has been the biggest driver of household hardship, also moderated to 21.87% year-on-year, down from 37.5% last year. But the relief hasn't reached everyone equally. Urban inflation is to 19.75%, while rural inflation stayed higher at 20.28%, underlining how insecurity, transport costs, and supply chain challenges food more expensive outside the cities. Farmers complain that even when crop prices fall, rising fuel and transport costs eat away their earnings. Transport cost remains another sticking point. Despite the slowdown in inflation, bus fares and intra-city transport charges haven't dropped. Core inflation, which strips out food and energy, fell to 20.33% year-on-year, but rose to a monthly basis of 1.43%. That means the cost of rent, electricity, school fees, healthcare, and transportation are still climbing. For many Nigerians, particularly small business owners, the easing inflation numbers have not translated into relief for them. Stakeholders said while falling inflation looks positive on paper, it has little effect on ordinary Nigerians. They urged the government to provide a soft landing through social safety nets, food access, and transport support, warning that without urgent interventions, the micro, small, and medium enterprises, which employ over 80% of the workforce, risk collapse. Businesses also report that market realities do not align with official statistics as household purchasing power remains weak. Many SMEs are cutting back on raw materials purchase and delaying equipment investments because of high costs and declining consumer demand. Organized private sector leaders also agree that while disinflation is welcome, it does not mean prices are falling. They stress that higher prices will only drop with significant increase in production and reduce post-harvest losses. The inflation announcement comes days before the Central Bank of Nigeria's Monetary Policy Committee met on September 22 to 23rd, while 5 months of easing inflation could give the MPC flexibility. Persistent food and core inflation may compel the bank to maintain its current benchmark interest rate of 27.5%. The CBN faces a delicate balance: keep interest rates high to curb inflation or ease to support growth in its sluggish economy. Despite signs of macroeconomic stability, Nigeria's inflation remains among the highest in Africa. The moderation offers a glimmer of hope, but has not translated into improved welfare for most Nigerians. SMEs, which make up to 96% of the business space and drive job creation, continue to face high input costs, weak demand, and declining margins. Private sector leaders and analysts insist that the government must move beyond celebrating disinflation to tackling structural bottlenecks, insecurity, weak infrastructure, poor logistics, and inadequate power supply. For business and households, inflation may be slowing, but survival remains an uphill battle. In the property market, the African Real Estate Society says the bigger challenge lies in poor and unreliable data, which continues to hold back real estate growth. At first glance, the warning from the African Real Estate Society about poor data may sound like a technical problem, but at its core, this gap has real consequences for millions of Nigerians struggling to secure affordable shelter. For years, the country has worked with housing deficit estimates ranging from 17 to 22 million. But as experts noted at the African Real Estate Society conference in Lagos, those figures are at best broad strokes. They fail to capture the realities of Nigerians across income levels. For a villager content with a modest mother house, the issue is different from that of a young professional in Lagos priced out of the city's spiraling rents. Without accurate context-driven data, policies often treat these groups the same and end up serving neither effectively. This disconnect has ripple effect. When numbers guiding government policies are vague or exaggerated, housing finance becomes harder to unlock. Banks and investors hesitate, unsure of real size and distributions of demand. For low-income families, this means limited access to mortgage. For developers, it means higher borrowing costs that are passed down to buyers and renters. In the end, ordinary Nigerians bear the brunt, paying more for homes and living in overcrowded or unsafe conditions. The gap becomes clearer when compared to South Africa, where a unified financial system makes it easy for people to build credit history and access single-digit mortgage rates. In Nigeria, fragmented systems and poor record means people can build trust with banks. Instead, they face double-digit loan rates that make home ownership almost impossible. But beyond finance, the housing deficit ties into bigger social issues. Rising construction costs, insecurity, and poor infrastructure already strain daily life. When rent rises, workers spend more of their income just to keep a roof over their head, leaving less for food, healthcare, or education. Families are forced to live farther away from jobs, leading to longer commutes, traffic congestion, and reduced productivity. The union also warned that without targeted policies, Nigeria risks deepening inequality. The rising land values in areas like Banana Island may signal profitability for investors, but they are also at a stark reminder of how disconnected the luxury market is from the everyday Nigerians struggling to secure a one-room apartment. It's not about data alone, it's about how poor data translates into real hardship. Until Nigerian build system that reflects the true housing needs of its citizens, from rural dwellers to urban renters, policies will continue to miss the mark. And without affordable housing, social stability and economic growth remains at risk. The challenge is not only to calm houses, but to understand people where they live, what they can afford, and how to create sustainable systems that match their realities. Because behind every statistic is a Nigerian family and their hope for a decent place to call home. In the agricultural space, the shea nut sector is struggling as the government's sudden export ban drives down prices, eating farmers and shaking market confidence. For thousands of Nigerian farmers, the shea harvest that should bring hope has instead brought heartbreak. Prices have crashed by more than 30% after President Bola Ahmed Tinubu ordered a 6-month ban on raw shea nut export to push local processing. The policy, which took immediate effect, is subject to review after 6 months and is expected to help generate about $300 million annually in the short term. But while the intention may be to strengthen Nigerian share value chain, the sudden enforcement of ban is already creating serious disruptions. Across rural communities where share nut sales provide seasonal income, farmers are facing a price collapse of more than 30% since the announcement. For many, this means not being able to recover cost of harvesting, storage, or transportation. Aggregators who serve as middlemen between farmers and exporters are also struggling with unsold stockpiles mounting and loans taken from banks now at risk of default. The impact extends to exporters. Many operate on tight international contracts, and with the shipments now blocked, they risk breaching agreements, facing litigation, and damaging Nigerians' credibility in global markets. Bank financing, which many exporters rely on to fund aggregation and logistics, is also under threat as repayment becomes difficult. Dr. Muda Yusuf, CEO of the Center for Promotion of Private Enterprise, described the policy as well-intentioned but poorly executed. In his words, sudden bans like this create uncertainty, weaken investor confidence, and effectively penalize primary producers to benefit processors. The result is a zero-sum game where jobs and incomes at grassroots are sacrificed for the promise of industrial growth. Beyond farmer and exporters, the ban threatens thousands of jobs across the value chain, from cultivation and logistics to trade and financing. For rural households who depend on share nuts income for school fees, healthcare, and food, the shock has been immediate. Experts argue that while local value addition is critical for Nigeria's economic diversification, it must not come at the expense of farmers. The CPPE has recommended a phased transition approach where clear timelines allow businesses to adjust and fulfill existing contracts. They also emphasize the need to address structural challenges like power supply, infrastructure, and financing so that processors can thrive on competitiveness, not only artificially low input costs. At the heart of this debate is a key question: should industrialization come at the cost of farmers' livelihoods? A win-win outcome is possible if reforms are market-friendly, inclusive, and backed by real consultation. For now, the share nut ban may not have noble intentions, but unless adjusted, it risks deepening rural poverty, undermining non-export, and eroding trust in government policy. And in the wider food sector, Nigeria's agricultural import bills rose to 2.22 trillion naira in the first half of 2025, a 22% increase compared with the same period last year. This comes despite repeated promises by the government to boost local production. A major driver of the rise is the 180-day duty-free window for the importation of rice, wheat, maize, and beans. While intended to ease food shortage, the policy has left many local farmers struggling as cheaper imports have dragged down farmers' gate prices. Many are unable to recover production costs. But beyond import, other pressures are weighing on the sector. Fertilizers and herbicides remain costly and often of poor quality. Purchasing power has weakened, meaning consumers buy less even when prices drop. Smallholder farmers who produce more of Nigerians' food are gradually leaving their fields as production becomes unprofitable. Efforts to improve mechanization have also stalled. More than 2,000 tractors launched in 2024 are yet to reach farmers due to administrative delays, leaving productivity at the same low levels. At the same time, warehouses are filling up with unsold produce while households continue to complain about high food prices. The situation points to a deeper problem. Demand is weak in an economy where incomes are not rising. Government interventions have also sent mixed signals due to waiver support imports, while directive calling for price cuts failed to address the cost of input, transport, and insecurity. Unless policy shifts towards consistent support for local producers through input subsidies, mechanization, logistics, and safety nets, Nigeria risks deepening its reliance on imports and worsening food insecurity. The food crisis is no longer only about high prices. It's about whether the country can build a system that sustains its farmers, protects consumers, and secures long-term food supply. Nigeria's economy shows mixed signals. Inflation on a steady decline, real estate growth stalled by poor data, and farmers hit by the Shea Export Ban. These are the stories shaping the markets today. That's it on today on Market Square. I'm Malaiton Adebayo. Thank you for staying with me. See you on the next one.